All right, folks, welcome back to the CoachCon podcast. So this is episode 11. I'm very lucky to be joined today by my friend Aaron Hill. We're going to deep dive into some real hard-hitting stuff today around resilience and mindset. So Aaron served for us in the forces, so I'm sure his background is going to be absolutely invaluable to us in terms of getting a bit more of a deep dive into mindset and how we can level up. So Aaron, thank you very much for coming on, mate. Are you all
No
good?
worries. No worries, mate. It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for this opportunity. Very grateful to get to speak to you, mate, and to your audience as well. So yeah, all good, mate. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you very much. So, Aaron, can you take us back to the start? What drew you into the forces, essentially?
Yeah, good question. It changes every time I get asked that, especially the older that I get. I guess once upon a time as a young lad, it'd have been adventure. Um, I wanted to challenge myself, and I thought that was the way to do it. I looked at all the glossy magazines. I watched all the programs as the lad as much as I could around the military and the forces. So yeah, I got drawn towards the Royal Marines after having spoken to a couple as a young lad and a teenager, and that's eventually where I ended up joining. So it's no one specific thing, just the course that took me down to the Marines, really, mate.
Fabulous, fabulous. And was there a defining moment in your service that completely changed how you think about resilience or fear?
Um, Not really. I mean, there's lots of things we can touch on, a couple of stories, no doubt. But there's no one thing. It's not until that I left that environment and became a coach, which is also something we'll get onto, I'm sure,
Yes,
that I
definitely.
started to go back and look at what had happened and my relationship to it, and what I made it mean. So it's not really one moment I can think of that changed my relationship with fear. It's more getting accustomed to stepping into it on a regular basis, but in a very different way. So once upon a time, the risks might have been quite high. The
Mhm.
fear was one type of thing, whereas now it's all emotional. There's no real danger or threat, yet it still feels quite visceral within us sometimes. So it's changed.
Certainly, certainly. And of course, you served for a long time. And is there any sort of lessons from that life that still guide you daily now that you perhaps use yourself or with clients on the coaching front?
Yeah, well, I guess with my clients, I meet them where they're at, so I don't generally teach anything from my past. It's not always
Hmm.
relevant. That's just my style of coaching. Um, I, that said, I did 5 years in the Royal Marines and then 5 years in Special Forces, which I was very fortunate to get to do. And probably the biggest thing that I take away from the latter is the saying which we were taught on day one, week one, is do your basics and do them well. And as you know, Rick Moylan is a mutual friend of ours. He talks about world
Certainly.
class basics all throughout. So that's probably something that really served me really, really well. And also, interestingly, what got me to here won't necessarily get me to there. So all those mindset and hacks and my beliefs that got me to where I am today might not work for me moving forward. So yeah, there's almost a paradox in that as well. They're probably the two of the things that jump out at me the most, Conrad.
Certainly. Yeah, no, I hear that. There was something came across before, new levels, new devils, isn't it? It
There
might
you
be
go. That's the one.
you've
Yeah,
got
yeah, yeah, yeah.
certainly. And for yourself, of course, when you left the service, did you find it was difficult to adjust, on any level, routines and that kind of thing?
Not for me personally. I always liked the routine and the structure. Yet that said, I also you've been in the special forces. It's not as structured. There's still certain structures to it, but we're left a little bit more to our own devices, and so that in that sense, the transition wasn't that hard. I was also really lucky that when I left, I had a bit of time to myself before going straight into the next job. So it's almost like a chance to just relax and give myself a good transition whilst before getting a new job. And that was working in my parents' garden. They bought a bit of land which had a quite a decent bit of land that was just completely overgrown with bushes and trees. And I just spent, I think, close to 3 weeks just outside in the elements, working on the land in nature, and then with my parents a lot as well. So it's quite therapeutic in that way, quite healing just to be at nature and be with the people that I love the most. So yeah, I
Certainly.
didn't. And to be honest, there you go. Last thing as well is that I
Yeah,
did
yeah.
what I did replicate is, so there was a massive sense of adrenaline and camaraderie. The camaraderie for me was quite difficult to replace, but I
Mm.
did find small ways. But I lent heavily on my hobbies, so I came really active in local mountain bike groups, and racing, which is a way of getting a bit of adrenaline, competition, give me a focus for my training, and yeah, just something really enjoyed. And once again, back out in nature.
Fabulous. Yeah, very good. And then, of course, now you're in the, resilience coaching field, working with clients. And what kind of drew you to that and made you think, yeah, this is the right next thing for me?
Yeah, you know what? I think there's a perception that we all have it, or some people have it clearly mapped out and know exactly where they're going. And most of us, in my experience, are making it up. Just some of it, it's like the duck, the analogy of the duck on the water. It's just gliding, but underneath the legs are the little legs are flapping. So there's a lot of that goes on. But for me, it was, again, through coaching, through self-discovery, learning a bit more about myself, opening up the perception of who I was and how I show up in the world, that I might not be one type of stereotype that I was always trying to be. I was trying to fit in. I was trying to get approval by doing things, trying to be one of the lads. But that wasn't quite my style, and I wouldn't have known how to express that when I was younger anyway. And that's okay, it's part of what makes me me. But it was okay. So I'm not that. I'm not trying to be the tough lad. I'm a resilient, compassionate man, and that for me, when I discovered that gift within me, I thought I want to be able to help that, draw that out of other people, help them. Take on challenges in a way that's not so personal, it's not so costly, give them other opportunities and options through their own coaching, through their own insights to take that on. So that's just the title that I happen to give myself at the moment, resilience coach. It might change tomorrow. Watch this space.
Certainly. No, I love that. Very, very, very good. So, something that I know you've spoken about as well is finding, purpose and how can you help someone uncover finding their purpose?
Yeah, great question. I think it's always there within us. It's not something we find. Um, I've got a podcast myself, as you know, and
Yeah.
one of my dear friends, Nick Wadsworth, talks about this in great depth. His whole company is built around meaning, authenticity, and purpose, and we have an incredible conversation around this. And often, purpose, he likes to describe it as past pain equals present purpose. So the struggles that we've gone through, the things that we find difficult and challenging, there's a lot of golden lessons in that, and to be able to present that back to the world is one way often of tapping into those gifts and serving people. So yeah.
1,000,000%. No, I really like that. And again, talking about resilience, do you think it can be something that the people kind of get wrong? They maybe think, resilience means tough or it means being disciplined or, is it some sort kind of something a bit deeper than that perhaps that folks maybe get wrong about resilience?
I think we've all got our own interpretations. To me,
Mm.
resilience is the ability to manage a situation emotionally and respond rather than react. So we learn, we take what we can from it in terms of lessons, rather than become absolutely crushed by a circumstance or just trying to push on when really we're burnt out, for example, or broken and we need to take some time off. Injury is a classic one in the gym. I know
Mm.
that you probably might even be able to relate to this, that when we start to get a bit of a twinge, just train through it,
Mm.
and end up paying the price, where a type approach might just be to recognize it. I think this isn't quite right. Maybe we can back off the training or add in a bit of extra recovery or go and
Mhm.
seek some support and just check in with ourselves, get to learn about what's going on for ourselves rather than carry on for a week, force an injury, which sees us taking 8 weeks off. I don't know, as an example. So yeah, there's lots of different levels to it. But for me, it's that. It's not necessarily cracking on regardless. It's not zipping up the man suit and super non-emotional and pushing on, or just enduring. But that's what it means to me.
Yeah, no.
So there's a few clues in that as to what we can do, and some things are more beneficial than others.
Yeah, no, definitely. And of course, a lot of folks in the modern way, all these things we say on social media, folks are wanting to be pushing themselves and having all this kind of discipline and that kind of thing. But how do you kind of find a balance between, say, pushing hard and then looking after yourself and your own mental health?
Great question, and I think that's a process, Conrad. You begin to learn, and I have people help me. I think so. In most things, we do best when we're surrounded by people, and not necessarily people that are going to agree with us, but people that are going to slightly push us. So people that are going to support us, people that are going to encourage or give us feedback, even if that's difficult. So that can look like different things in the forms of having a personal trainer or a coach, a training partner. And I think some lessons are learnt the hard way. I've had so many overtraining injuries from when I was younger. That's just the way it is. And at 45 now, I've built up a relationship with my body, and I've get to know it well enough that I can anticipate if I need to lower my training because I've not slept well for 2 nights because of the kids, or starting to get a cold, or getting that niggle that is an old injury. So it's a process. And I think what it comes down to is, as well, understanding why we want to train. What is it we're trying to get from it? What's the thing that we want from the thing that we want? So are we trying to appear to be good looking, just to have a six pack, or just to look good, but still not really accepting ourselves? Or do we want this for ourselves, for our health, to be able to do an event? I don't know, but there's usually different layers to it, and it's a dance. It's one that we have to learn as we go, I think.
Certainly. No, I agree with that. It's something that you rightly said it, like you just have to kind of figure it out as you go and keep refining things as well. I think sometimes there's no sort of set answer for certain things. It's just kind of find your own path with it as well, and hope you have
How do you
a bit of
manage
luck.
that, Conrad?
I think for me, it's just I've had to learn to be kind to myself as well, because I think a lot of the time, and I learned a lot of this through therapy as well, and it was just the thing of, rather than saying, being super critical, like, oh, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, sometimes it's focusing on the things that you have done. And then if life happens, you maybe have a couple of things go wrong, and maybe, as I say, maybe a bit of a cold coming on, something like that. It's maybe just saying, oh, well, actually, maybe I do need to take a bit of a back seat today, and not, it's knowing when to push and when to pull. I think that would
Yeah.
be the thing. And I think being kind to yourself, rather than, it's so easy to get so down in the dumps about things. And I think being a little bit cruel to yourself, and obviously you see the things on social media, the 5 a.m. ice baths and things like that, and stuff like that. It's not always possible, for certain people to be doing. And yeah, rather than staying or thinking, look what I haven't got, try and remember what you have, I
Yeah,
think.
and
And
that's a
sometimes it's how far you've come.
big time, mate. And that's a great point. And it reminds me sometimes, when I was working in between, when I left the military, I did 10 years private security work, all over the world. And then
Well,
at the end of that, I retrained because I had a young family. I retrained as a personal trainer and strength coach. And often I'd already had, so I was going into this role at 38, 39. So I had a wealth of experience, albeit very different. But that's something that I used to have to tell my clients a lot, because I'd learned the hard way there. Sometimes being kind, like you say, is 30-minute sessions a week,
mm,
not 5 1-hour sessions. And then we end up burning out or getting injured after 6 weeks. Just to manage our ego. And talking about balance, it's not always possible. For me, I think harmony is a better word. Balance implies that if it's just so easy to nudge it out and then it goes into right and wrong. Whereas harmony, Ironman, for example, was a classic case of I put a lot of my eggs in one basket in terms of training, and my wife supported me doing that for a few months. But there was no way that for me is in our circumstance was sustainable to be doing that much of training, needing to rest and having a young family and just being so absent because I was either out riding my bike or running, even though it is early. That means I was really tired. So it's just understanding at this time, this is my priority. It won't always be that. And then next month in a couple of months when that finishes, I can drop back to my normal training or recovery or whatever it might be. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just touching on training for a moment, of course, you know, you guys in the forces are obviously incredibly physically fit and that kind of thing. And what are kind of the routines that folks like yourself have done in the past, and how are the guys sort of train? Obviously, they're not near sort of world-class gyms all the time, so how can you keep yourself fit when you're maybe in the field or deployments and that kind of thing?
Yeah, the world of the military has changed so much since I've left. I've been out well over 15 years now. So, but certain things are true in that certain lads will always train and certain lads are loathed to train. And I was one of the latter. I didn't train that much when I was in the military, when we were away. And I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. So when I did, it was just doing the basics. What can we do well? Often when we were on deployments or on exercise, we were kept active anyway, so there's no need to be doing loads of extra training. But I think it would be have some sort of knowing where your gaps are. For most of us as blokes, that's certain levels of mobility and core strength, and to be working on those constantly. And then if there's time, energy with the opportunity to recover, then we can start adding other things in. But yeah, again, I value a couple of people with a world of experience that can help point me in the right direction rather than just trying to nail muscle ups, for example, which looks cool, but will that actually help me? So again, basics, and that will look different for each of us, but we can all paint a picture of what that is. Sometimes it's just a calisthenics workout, or with a rock as a load to be throwing or holding while we squat or deadlift. Do the basics and do them well. And when we get back to somewhere with a bit more facilities, then again, step into that level of training.
Certainly. No, I like that. I like what you said about training with like the rocks as well. That's quite interesting.
Or sandbags as well is a good example.
Yeah, just making use of the environment, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I was. That said, in special forces, we generally were quite well looked after, and the deployments that I was on when I was serving, we usually had some sort of gym, albeit basic, with a few dumbbells, a couple of barbells, and maybe a rower if we're lucky. So yeah, that's what we had to keep us going.
Certainly. No, I like that. And obviously you mentioned the Ironman side of things as well. What would say a typical training block look like for something like Ironman? How would you structure that personally?
Yeah, again, I paid people, and it's not to say that that has to cost loads of money. If you do a little bit of research and look at some training programs that are well documented, talked about, give a bit of value beforehand for you to try. But what was interesting about this Ironman program that I signed up for, I think there's 5 or 6 levels. Level 0, which is complete beginner, and it is based on time. So if you only had 6 hours a week to train, which is still a fair amount, by the way, then that was level 0, all the way up to pro. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which was, I can't remember how many hours a week to train. So it calculated the maximum amount that you had to train. So that's how I worked it out. I thought I would start at level 2, and I can't remember the amount of times, but let's just say an average training week was about 16 hours average. So sometimes it'd be more, sometimes it'd be less. I had to drop down because I couldn't get the recovery in with 2 kids waking me up in the night, and trying on some days to do double sessions and work and hold down a marriage. It's not happening in my case. so I had to drop it. So that would look like at least a swim, bike, and a run, and then sometimes a double session at the weekend, a bike and a run, and sometimes an extra one to fill in the gaps. So for me, it was running and swimming. So I usually used to do a few extra technique sessions. Towards the end, though, what I did do is drop the extra session for gym work, basic gym work, and that really helped me. And I really felt the benefit of just moving a bit of weight through deadlifting and squatting, lunging, and rowing. I felt good for that, to be honest. It was something that was missing. As and when I go for Ironman again, I'll definitely build a gym part, a strength and conditioning part into that.
Very good. When are you next thinking about an Ironman? Have you got something in mind?
I haven't. My wife asked me the question the other week, actually, and I said, when could we do it? Because, like I said, it is a we thing. She has to be able to, in our case, be able to take up a little bit of the extra slack, or be prepared for me to be out running or training in the evening. So it's on both of us. I would like to think within another 2 years, but the interesting thing about Ironman for me is that it's not very fun training. It's just boring, and it's a lot easier in terms of intensity than you might, at least the system that I was using, than you might believe. So it's having the discipline to stay within the low zones, according to this training program, to be able to go out and perform on the day. So yeah, I used a method called 80-20. So 80% of the time you're below race pace. Be that on the bike, the swim, or the run, and 20% you were over. And that 20% was it was incredibly painful. It was in really, really intense, fast pace, completely opposite of the slow pace zone 2 that had been used to being chugging along in. But so yeah, it's quite. My mind has to be ready to want that, because everything gets parked and it's just lots of long cycles, long swims, and long runs, and that doesn't really excite me at the moment, Conrad. So not yet.
No, I don't understand that.
I like variety, mate, as I'm sure you can relate to.
That's it. No, definitely, it's good to do different things. Certainly, I think. You don't want to be stuck, because if you end up getting stuck, you get bored, and then I think you can just completely sack training off altogether rather than just change into something a little bit different. So
yeah,
I
I
get
tell you
that.
what I did find though within that boredom was quite a lot of structure. So for example, some days it was like a 2.5 hour turbo training session. So on the static bike downstairs in the garage before my house was awake, that I let go of trying to perform a certain time. I was trying to get under 10 hours. I just let go of that because I realized I can't control that. But what I can control is how I prepare for every training session and how I do that training session. So I used to study what I do the night before. I get my kit ready for 2.5 hours. There's an opportunity for fuel and hydration. So that would be ready. It'd all be laid out, even written out. So all I had to do was get up, put my bib on, do a few warm-up moves, get on the bike and go. It's less thinking. So I became really good at just doing the boring basics, and I trusted the training program to get me around, which it did in quite a handsome time as well. So yeah.
Brilliant. Congratulations. I love that. It's certainly on my list. I've done 50k ultra before, and
Wow.
I was pleased to get that done. And to be fair, a lot of these things I've done with like minimal training. So I've had a dreadful history with sort of shin splints and then a stress fracture, and I never know where I'm at with that. I'm trying to do a lot more stuff around even just sort of balancing on one leg and things like that, just to sort of train sort of shin and everything else, just to strengthen up a bit, because it's definitely on my list to try and get that done. Like, it's something I've always fancied. Like,
Here's something I realised though, that there's a technique to running as there is to swimming, and bike there is a little bit as well, but that's more to do with in the fit or the shape, the most efficient shape for the bike, especially on long distance stuff. So again, when I put my money, I invested that back. So it wasn't a case of just going out and thrashing myself. It was finding a couple of people to learn a technique from in terms of swimming. I did a weekend course. I bought the book they recommended. I studied. Used to send them videos to get feedback, so it was a constant loop of trying to not just do the physical, but also the technical aspect of running and swimming as well. And I'm not surprised. I'm sure you could probably do one anyway. It might be a struggle, but the thing is, at what cost? What injuries might you pick up? How long will it take? And for me, it's always about the recovery. So even when I was doing the Ironman, as soon as I'd finished, it's about getting as much nutrition and hydration in and mobility, because I wanted to be doing stuff again in a few days' time. The first Ironman I ever did, a bit like you, I came back from overseas. It's just the way it was. I smashed myself round. It was the marathon was the longest part of my life, but I could hardly walk for a week afterwards. Whereas the last one I did, it was a little bit sore, but within 2 days I felt all right. What's at what cost?
Certainly. Which ones were they? Because I think there's only one in England at the moment, isn't there? Is it
What's that?
Bolton? Ironmans. Is because I'm sure. Do we only do one in the UK now? Have I
No,
got that
mate. I
right?
think if you went
Yeah.
online and looked at Ironman, I think that a good few years ago there used to be quite a few.
Mhm.
Ironman Wales, Bolton. I live over in Barcelona, and so that's where again, it's not a cheap sport, so I used to
No,
try and race close to home, rather than have to get hotels and flights and all that good stuff and hire cars. So I race close to home.
certainly. Yeah, I appreciate that. As I say, it's. I think it was maybe just the organisation I'd looked at, and it was rather than going sort of through Ironman.com, I think I ended up on sort of, and I reckon the only one in the UK at the time was Bolton.
Okay, yeah,
So
so
no,
it's a
I
different
thought I must
brand.
be wrong.
There's different brands. So Challenge is another brand that springs
Ah,
to mind. I'm not sure if they're still around. They were a while ago. I know they had quite a few events in the UK, and they do here in Spain as well.
got you. Thank you very much. No, I appreciate that. That's good for me there. So, I mean, a lot of talk online, you see people putting out these morning routines and that kind of thing. Do you have any sort of non-negotiables for yourself each day? Any kind of routines or rituals that you sort of live by?
I do, but I would stress that this is 45 years of worth of experimenting and trying this and trying that, doing nothing, then doing everything, and it's a continually evolving episode, or series. So for me, that looks like getting up, meditating, having a pint of water, the first thing, doing, as soon as I finish my meditation, I do a few journal questions, or just,
Nice.
if I can't think of anything, I've got 5 questions, 1 sentence per question, and then a few mobility moves, and that is the absolute basic for me. Then I've done something for myself, and then if there's time, I will do steps. But that's not a struggle for me, because I walk my kids to school and back, and that's my steps
Lovely.
done. And then a gym session, as well as like a nutritious meal, eating like an adult, rather than imagining that somebody's watching me most of the time. But I must say, Conrad, I'm not 100% strict, so I am consistent, but I'm not rigid. So if I'm
Mm,
on holiday or I'm away, or if I'm tired, or if I'm run down, or if my kids haven't slept well, or whatever it might be, then I give
yeah,
myself a bit of grace. And like you were talking about earlier, I'm kind to myself to recognize,
yeah.
okay, today I can park that, tomorrow's a new day, and then I carry on. So yeah, usually
Brilliant.
I won't go without some form of routine for 3 or 4 days. By that time, my body's just gently reminding me that I feel better after doing a bit of mobility, or these thoughts that I've got in my head are better just got out and onto paper. So
Very
that's,
good.
that's generally my morning routine, mate.
Fabulous. In terms, obviously, you mentioned the journaling side of things there as well. Is there what benefits do you feel yourself through that? Is there's a lot of hype about it online. I've done a little bit myself and found it useful. But what's your kind of take on it? The journaling
Yeah,
front.
so what a really good mate of mine, Gaz Banford, who runs a coaching group, the Doratus group. He's ex-forces as well, from a similar background to myself. I love the
Mm,
expression. It's just thinking in ink. So
mm,
thinking is an incredibly um, energy draining exercise. And if you just think about this for a minute, you just pause this, you think, So if we imagine ourselves, if you imagine a sexual image, you will have a sexual reaction in your body. If you imagine something fearful, you'll feel that in your body. So if we're constantly thinking, we're sending ourselves on a roller coaster. For me personally, being able to get out whatever's in my head into ink, if I can't speak to somebody, out into the journal, it's just getting physically a bit of distance from it. I've expressed it and I think, actually, that hasn't got as much weight, or that's not quite right. I can reframe it, I can rethink it, challenge those thoughts, of which we have so many a day. So it's just, yeah, and there's no right or wrong. It's again, it's nothing. I'm not looking to change the world through my journal when I'm gone. It's just a routine for me to just get to check my thoughts. Yeah, I'm thinking ink. I love that phrase. So cheers, guys.
No, I like that. It's for me, it's been very much a thing of just it's just clearing my own mind. I think that's the way I've looked at it, rather than trying to go super deep and make lists and that kind of thing. I mean, some folks do maybe 20, 30 minutes. I think, sometimes I just try and get something, as you say, just in front of us. And sometimes I think as well, it's nice when you get the problem or the thoughts, the failings out, you actually look at it on the paper and you go, oh, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. Or, it maybe draw a couple arrows on and say, oh, well, I'll get out of it this way, or this will happen, and it calms you down. And I think it's very useful, because I think mentally we can get very overactive,
Yeah.
especially on the night time and that kind of thing. Or again, sort of first thing on the morning, if you've got a lot on, it's nice to just get that clear headspace and then deal with the tasks one by one, isn't it?
Yeah, and for me, sometimes that might be a funny thing that's happened, or something interesting my kids have said, or something moving that I've experienced. And in fact, let me read. I've got my journal here. Let me read one of the questions. So if I can't think of anything, this is something I got from online, but
Brilliant. Yeah, share it,
five
please.
questions that I think or get asked myself. I can't remember who gave me this, but or got sent. If I can't think of anything, what's one thing I'm grateful for? One
Brilliant.
sentence. What's one thing I'm excited about for today? One sentence. What's one virtue I want to display? What's the one thing I'm avoiding? That's always a really
Mm.
interesting one. And then what's the one thing I need to do today? So yeah, just that sometimes helps. Oh yeah, I hadn't remembered I'm avoiding sending that email asking that client for that money they owe me. You know what I mean? There's all those
Yeah,
sorts of things, very conveniently forget. So
certainly. And something I say a lot as well, we obviously work with our clients, and sometimes it's the thing, someone might come to us and they seem to be stuck in the same place with, distractions and things, maybe taking them away from the goals. What sort of the techniques you use to kind of help someone come away from, maybe the negative distractions in their life, things like relationships, the people are surrounding themselves with? What's kind of the conversation you maybe have around that?
yeah, so I guess for me, what I help my clients do is peel back the layers to understand why those distractions are there. So it's asking lots and lots of questions, and there's no right or wrong. It's just helping them come to see their own situation in a slightly different light, or pull up those beliefs that realize they're in self-sabotage because they have this old belief that they've never thought to question. Yeah, and sometimes that's like asking them, well, what's the cost? What's the benefit of both? What's the cost of avoiding this? What's the benefit
Mm.
of avoiding it? And just getting them to weigh it up, see it in a slightly different light, and then often it's supporting them while they take steps to follow through with that new action, should they want to. So yeah, there's no set way or routine. It's really meeting where they're at, shoulder to shoulder, and just helping them draw out their own insights and answers.
Certainly. And for something I like to ask folks like yourself as well, sort of a, coach, that kind of thing, and obviously incredible background that you've got. And what's something that you'd say to someone who's maybe completely stuck at the moment, just if they're listening to this? And because that's, as we've said, that's kind of the audience I sort of aim for, the guys that are maybe stuck, really struggling to get going, get into things, whether that's getting into shape or, taking the chance and, you know, new career, whatever it might be, but also the folks that's doing particularly well. So just thinking about the guys that's maybe struggling a little bit at the moment, what kind of advice would you give them if they're listening to this at the moment?
Yeah, so if they were listening to this is one thing. If they were sat in front of me, it'd be another, because I wouldn't give advice. It would just hold space for them, question them, help them see their situation from a slightly different perspective. So I think there's three things that immediately come into my mind, and that is to take the smallest step possible. So if they're trying to get back into going to the gym, but it just feels like too much, or they're embarrassed, then that might look like tomorrow just laying out the gym kit and getting up 20 minutes early to practice being up 20 minutes early to go do a gym session. The next day, I wake up 20 minutes early again, but put the gym kit on, still don't do anything. The next day, it'll be wake up early, put the gym kit on, and walk to the end of the street. The next day, do you know what I mean? It's really, really small steps, really, really small steps. So it'd be the smallest thing they could do is one. The second thing, as I alluded to earlier, is something I'm really grateful that the military has taught us again, is that teamwork, that support, reaching out to people like yourself or somebody supportive, sometimes outside the family, because there's not the emotional buy-in then. So talking to somebody about what you're going through, getting them to suggest or give you a loving slap, metaphorically, to move forward, if that's what's helpful. And the third one, it would be just a little reframe, really. We don't have to, we get to. So often when my kids have come into here, there's just stuff left everywhere, bits of the school bags unpacked, and toys and snacks or whatever, you know what I mean? A bit of a chaos and carnage. And I don't have to tidy up. I don't have to tell them off. I don't have to do anything. I get to. I'm fortunate enough, so I don't have to. I get to. Get to shows me that I've got a choice. That I'm fortunate enough to have kids. That I'm fortunate enough to have a house. That I'm fortunate that they've got something to eat that sometimes leaves crumbs on the floor. So I think those three little things really, mate. Take small steps, talk to somebody, and try the reframe. You don't have to. You get to.
It's brilliant. No, I definitely that third one as well. Like, that's something I've even used myself, because at the minute, it has been a thing of where I'm getting up sort of maybe 5:30, training, getting my own bit in, seeing clients first thing, then maybe being on the laptop doing client check-ins, things like that, and then of course, but today I had the pleasure of sort of prepping for yourself, getting my questions ready, and then obviously we're doing this, and then after this I'll be editing it, and it's a full day, but I get to do these things. I sort of remember when I was in a call centre at Npower dealing with billing queries that I didn't know how to deal with, and it's the thing, we get to do these things certainly, and we get to train, we get to be able to live this life that I think we're fortunate to, and it's I think I definitely we get to, that's the way to definitely think about it, for sure. I love that.
That won't work for everyone, by the way, and that's okay. But I think that's worked for me in the past. It's an interesting reframe.
Same, absolutely. And just kind of touching on like stories from home that we mentioned at the beginning. I mean, are you able to kind of share a story from your service where resilience made all the difference? Something like that?
Yeah. So no one thing jumps to my mind, but the story that you heard me tell was when I was serving and got into a firefight, the first one. How my response, I didn't anticipate my response. So even though I'd done loads and loads of training, and I, on one hand, thought I was going to react or respond a certain way, I didn't. In fact, my whole world started to shut down just because the stress of that moment was so much. The interesting thing about that is that I carried that sort of self-criticism of being a coward, because that was how I responded for years, without ever like speaking about it, without ever challenging it or questioning it. So I avoided a lot of opportunities to speak up, a lot of opportunities to try new things, because I was afraid of being a failure or being a coward or getting it wrong in public. It was a really interesting experience to go through, to get rid of, because it felt like taking a weight off my back, and it's still there if I want to. And whilst I can't change the past, I can change my perception of it and of myself. So I get to be really kind to myself now, understandingly that, yeah, that was an incredibly stressful moment. And interestingly enough, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say that's completely normal. I experienced the same thing, blah, blah, blah. My point there is that if we don't challenge our own stories and narratives, they're not always true. So to be able to express them and help people, or have people help draw them out of us, then it just continues to run in the background, and see us do more and more, get burnt out, be dissatisfied, turn to exercise as a sort of like as a drug, turn to drugs, turn to alcohol, turn to food, so it just fuels us. So yeah, just to gently challenge old stories and old beliefs. So yeah, we're fully in the driving seat rather than having some old program run us, because yeah, that was meant to happen. That's meant to happen. It's a survival instinct. It's there to protect me, but it didn't serve me.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing that. And so it's on the other side of things as well, of course, coaching now. Is there someone who you've coached, the story you can think of where you've completely turned things around? Success story you can maybe share?
Again, there's no one story. The
Mm.
type of people that I coach, they're at a certain level that their lives outside won't look like they've turned around. But there's
Mm.
examples of dads that are so busy, snowed under work, with work, no time for themselves or for their relationships or for their kids, and almost neglecting that side of life because they're determined to prove themselves through a successful business, but it's not sustainable. So it's about them building relationships with themselves, and then therefore their kids. As one example, a guy who started his own business but realized he didn't want to do that, and ended up starting his own podcast, and really successful one, supporting loads of people
Fabulous.
changing careers. So yeah, the type of people that come to me aren't in desperate need. In fact, I say you don't need my coaching. You need to want it. So they're not coming to me needy. It's not my style
No,
of client or coaching. But yeah, incredibly powerful, deep connections come through. That's what comes from coaching with me.
certainly. And how would you say you've just on the coaching front? How would you say you've attracted clients? Has it been through your social media or that kind of thing?
Yeah, so again, I think just starting. My
Mm.
first client came through my old boss at the gym. I told him, Geordie, I'm handing my notice. I know I need to give 2 weeks. I'm giving a month just to give you a heads up, because I know they're struggling to find new trainers at that stage. I felt really nervous about doing it. He asked me, what are you going to do? And I said, set up my own coaching business. And a few days later, he came to me and said, I think I've got a client for you. So I hadn't even left and he was giving me a coaching client. So that is just getting out there. But for me, that has been the podcast. It's been lots of conversations with people face to face at networking events. Toastmasters, like a public speaking group, is something that I do, that I've built incredible relationships with people there. Social media, but that's generally LinkedIn and written form for me.
Yeah,
The newsletter, so lots of different things, and like I said, the podcast as well, but lots of different ways. And there's no one way. I think it's about finding what works for, as a coach, what works for you, what you enjoy, and leaning into that. We don't all have to be dancing certain dances on TikTok to get clients. I mean, if you like to, cool, but yeah, each to their own.
certainly. Certainly. No, I like that. And is there anything that's kind of surprised yourself? Is there anything sort of surprised you through the whole journey from being in the forces to now coaching? Anything that sort of jumped out?
I think that the challenge that it is to run a business, it can seem like it's the pinnacle, but sometimes it really is a challenge, as I'm sure you find. Sometimes there's quiet months where the doubt starts to come in. Am I even a good coach, etc. But also, yeah, the amount of connection that people desire in their lives and need sometimes as well, are two of the biggest things. And how many supportive people are out there. I've been moved by that, especially from the podcast. The relationships, like I said, that I've built with some of my guests has been incredible. I couldn't have wished for a better result really there. So yeah, that's what jumps out at me, mate.
Brilliant. Aaron, it's been absolutely fantastic. So something that I'll ask is, where is best to find you online? How can we work with you? Maybe even take this a little bit deeper with yourself. What's best in terms of where
Yeah,
to
I
find you?
appreciate that, mate. So I'd say there's two best options, and the first one would be to get in touch with me via LinkedIn, which is where I'm most active, at Aaron
Brilliant.
Hill Synergy Coaching. And I am on Instagram, but that's mainly now just for the podcast, where I'll put snippets of the shows up there, and yeah, just strike out a conversation. And I'm just happy to hear from people. It's always nice when you start to close the loop on these conversations. So yeah, just reach out, and it'd be great to meet you, have a conversation, and yeah, just take it from there. No pressure.
Fabulous. Absolutely fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Aaron Hill. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been episode 11 on the CoachCon podcast. I'm Conrad Ashton. Thanks for listening, and I shall see you in the next one.